All right, we've got two Illinois people. So I'm in Wisconsin, not too far away. Welcome. We have a little experience and none at all, which is totally fine. Hopefully you'll learn a few things and see how easy this can be. Yes, lots of Illinois tonight. So we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. So if you took care of your task and you need to get up, stretch quick, grab some water, a snack, whatever. I'm sure you didn't get home too long ago. So take a minute or two for yourself while we let the rest get settled in. All right, so we do have a couple more that are new to the group. So feel free to just answer these few questions as you come on in, giving out your name, your role, your location, what experience you have with HTML, if you have any idea what my tags mean. And then once you're ready to go, you can sit back and relax, and we'll probably get started in just a minute or so. All right, well, I'm gonna just kick it off. As people join us, they'll have a moment to get settled, and I'll just quickly introduce myself and what we are going to experience today. So I am Jessica Kozinski. I was previously an innovation coach in the West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District here in Wisconsin. So I wore many hats, which I'm sure many of you here today wear as well. So I taught computer science and creation with the iPad for kindergarten through fifth grade students. So they kind of came to me like a specials class, just like art and music. And then I helped teachers integrate technology and project-based learning into the classroom. And I helped manage our school library and all of our common school funding. So there's a few little pictures of me and my space with my kids. So teaching computer science really was what I loved most about my job. So that led me to join the Skillstruck team. I currently live in Burlington, Wisconsin. So again, I'm not too far from that Illinois border there. This is my beautiful little pup who believes that coding is for everyone. If you hear her bark, I apologize. But she took a walk, so hopefully she's going to be just fine. So if you have just joined, feel free to just toss your name, your role, your location in the chat while we get started here. So just a few announcements to get us going. If at any time after today, you feel the need to post anything on Twitter about what you created, what you learned, or more importantly, show some pictures of your students doing this in action when you go back to your classroom, feel free to just tag us and show us all the amazing work that you are doing. If you would like a professional development certificate, we can provide those for you. We'll have a little bit of time at the end. You could kind of toss in the chat if you need that. If you are a fellow Illinois teacher that belongs to IDEA, I actually will be sharing your name with them. So you won't need to do that additional step there. You will get a follow-up email from me with all of the resources that we're going through today, plus a couple extras. So be sure to look out for that email. You'll get the recording from today, the slideshow from today, and some additional things to help you teach this in the classroom. My last little piece of advice is participation is excellent, is key. It'll keep us moving forward so we don't have to spend too much time on different brainstorming. So if you have something to share, shout it out, throw it in the chat, and it'll keep us moving along. So we are going to get into our event here. So this is an event, I've titled it, Let's Save the Earth. It's an HTML experience for students and just can tie into Earth Day. So I'm going to quickly go over some learning objectives, materials, and our agenda. If you're anything like me, you always had to have those up on your board in case your principal ever walked through. So wanted to include those for you. So here's our agenda today. Hopefully you're not too wiped out from your day and you can hang with us just a little bit longer. I hope you don't have as many sticky notes as this poor gentleman in the picture, but we're going to go over learning objectives, materials, what a PSA is with a warm-up activity. Then we're going to create some brainstorms. We're going to plan around our Earth Day, a public service announcement. We'll get into HTML and we'll get into some creation today. I just highlighted on here these in different colors because this could probably be a multiple day lesson for you. So if you're able to see students more than just one time, this could be something that you could revisit often. I also created another resource that I'll share with you. This is just some extension lesson ideas. It'll include some little tidbits of project-based learning, some ways for students to move around your classroom, to give some feedback to their peers. So this will be shared for you as well. And this kind of goes back to just that this could be a longer process than just one lesson, but we are gonna jam it all in here in our hour. So students will be able to identify a problem that needs to be solved. This problem will directly relate back to the Earth. We will understand what a public service announcement is. We will provide some statistics relating to the problem that we'd like to solve. And then we will design and create using some basic HTML concepts. So if you're a beginner with HTML, don't worry, we're doing some basics today. Materials, we need our device with internet. We're going to have a playground link that will continue to be shared with you. A graphic organizer, which I will provide for you with those additional lesson resources, a writing tool, and of course, your brain. Today, the most important things for you is your device that you're on and the fact that you are here with us. So here's a warm-up activity. Okay, the rest of this experience is basically what you could do directly with students. So you can just go through this whole slideshow with them and kind of go word for word. So warm-up activity, what is a public service announcement? A public service announcement is an announcement made for the good of the public. They are designed to make the public or specific audiences more aware of an issue or epidemic and lead them to make a change or take action. So we're going to check out some examples. Just take a few seconds here to look at these, to just observe. You may want to have students write down what they notice, write down things that they wonder. These could also be pasted around your classroom, sort of like a gallery walk. And of course, you could change these out to be more related to the age group of your students. So here's a couple more. So again, just giving them a little bit of time to see what a public service announcement could look like. I decided not to do too much that related directly to Earth Day because I wanted students to be able to come up with their own learning. But if your students might need a little bit more help, this could be a nice way to show them an example before you even get into the lesson. So if you would like to throw out in the chat or just shout out anything you noticed about the examples. This will be a time to get students' juices flowing, hopefully having them connect to what a public service announcement is. Oop. Just gonna throw some things in here. Awesome. See that the pictures, there was not a lot of text, it's a simple message. Awesome. So I did include here on speaker notes some things that you could maybe help with students along the way. My suggestion would be make sure that students can refer back to this list at any time and to try to make it as long as possible. But we'll just move forward here. So here's what to know about public service announcements. So it should introduce a significant problem in the world. It should have simple, quick facts. So being able to catch the reader in a quick moment, sort of like a billboard or something you would see while you're driving. They should be truthful facts to your problem that will shock your reader into taking action. So while we're trying to shock the reader, we have to make sure we're doing that in a truthful manner. And of course, they need to grab your readers or your viewers' attention. So there should be some engaging photos on your public service announcement. So moving into our connection between Earth Day and PSAs. So April 22nd is Earth Day, and while it is important to take care of our Earth every day, this is a great time to remind others of things we can do each day to protect our Earth. So in celebration of this, we are all going to create our own PSA using HTML, sort of like this. So here is an example. This is my example. This is not a perfect example, but I wanted to leave it like this to provide you with maybe an extension activity to do with your students. So you could almost have them critique this example, maybe critique the example you make today. I have way too much text in my second statistic. So this would be a good little activity to have them look at what could I improve on, and hopefully lead them into keeping those things fresh in their mind as they create their own. So before we get in to actually creating this, we have to get all of our thoughts organized. So we are going to do a brainstorm for our public service announcement. Now, knowing that this should relate directly back to Earth Day, what kinds of topics could we include? You want to just put them in the chat, shout them out, and I can toss some things on here for us. Awesome. I see planting trees, some pollution, plastic cups used for everyday coffee drinks. Awesome. Lots of great ideas in here. So just a side note, students love to talk about plastic bottles. I actually did a different type of Earth Day public service announcement. When I was still teaching, we used clips to create videos about this, and almost every student picked a plastic bottle. So they were all about reducing that. So it is a topic that of course is relevant to our world and also that they find very engaging. So we're going to do some planning. So you just got some examples of topics. I'm sure your students will have tons more to choose from as well, but we are going to do a little bit of planning here. Now I will provide you with this graphic organizer at the end, so no need to fret. You'll have this resource. I know that we are all adults here, so you may not need too much time to plan, but I'm just going to give you about a minute or two to think about just some things you could include. Because when we get over to the HTML, it might just be easy for you to have at least something in your mind that you can include instead of trying to learn too many things at once. So again, you'll have a blank one for your students. And here's one just with my information included. So in the middle, I had my topic or my problem. I had an engaging lead, and then 2 solutions or statistics to support that, and then a call to action. Just came up with a slogan that related to, I don't know, lucky pennies. It just came to my mind, so I threw that in there. But of course, you can do whatever you find to be creative in that call to action. And then each of these pieces of information are things we're going to include when we create using HTML. So I'm just going to pause here, give you a couple minutes to gather your thoughts. If your thoughts are gathered, feel free to stretch, grab some water, but just going to give a minute or two to do some thinking here. All right, I'll just give another minute here. The next steps for us today are going to be to get into some HTML and to get into our code playground. Now, like I stated before, you'll have some options for extending this activity. It might be a good idea to do all of those steps that we just did in one lesson and then jump into HTML in the next, depending on how much time you have. Again, we have an hour, so I'm just trying to cruise on through it to make sure you have all of the resources that you need. So HTML. HTML is the programming language used to create websites. HTML uses tags to make titles, pictures, and information that you see on a website. HTML elements are made up of an opening tag and a closing tag with some content sandwiched between them. The tags start and end with less than and greater than symbols with the tag name between those symbols. Here's what an opening tag looks like. We have a less than with H1 and greater than. And our closing tag is similar, but we need a backslash before entering the H. This is where sometimes when we are doing our coding, we forget to throw in that slash. And then a complete element looks sort of like this. We have an opening tag with some content in the middle, like hello world, with our closing tag. Now, don't worry, we're going to do this all together on the platform, so you don't have to memorize this. But before we do that, I just want to mention that there's a header hierarchy. So we have some folks here who are brand new to HTML. So this is an important little tidbit. This header on H1 is going to be your biggest. So that'll make your text the biggest. And all the way down to H6 will be the smallest text that the headers will create. So we are going to practice this in our code playground. So at this time, I would love for you to open up the link if you haven't already and fill in your information. To access our code playground. And I am just going to make a new file for us. And I'm going to give just a moment for us to get logged in there. So please feel free to put in the chat if you need any help, if you need that link again. And then if you could just indicate in the chat when you are good to go with a thumbs up or I'm good, so I know where you're at. All right, some of us are in, some of us are probably still logging in. While you get in, just want to continue here with some information for you. So this is our code playground. On the left side, you will see that there are courses. So right now we are in web development. We will be using some of these HTML1 concepts today. So we'll be in some headers, some text colors. So at any time, you can refer to this if you need a little bit of help. This is exactly what students will see as well. So you can get all the information on the left side. We will be doing our coding in the middle, and then you will be able to see it run on the right side here. So we're just going to warm up with some headers and practice that header hierarchy that we just saw. You can feel free to leave this book open. You can kind of play around with how it looks on your screen, or since you are having me help you today, you could get rid of that altogether. Totally depends on your learning style. But we'll kick it off with headers. So we will do our H1, and I will zoom this in. You might be able to see that just a little bit better. So we're going to do H1, an opening H1 tag, and a closing tag. So making sure that we have the backslash before the H. And I would love for you to do this from H1 all the way down to H6 so you can get comfortable with this and you can see what that hierarchy looks like. If you ever, like this, create a mistake, it'll highlight in red, indicating that there is a bug in your code. If you cannot figure out why, please indicate in the chat if you need some help with troubleshooting. This is where if you were in person, I would say ask a neighbor, but if you need any help from us, feel free to put that in the chat. This is a great warm-up activity for students, especially if they have never coded before, especially if they don't type very much. Getting them comfortable with finding the different keys on the keyboard will be a time saver in the end. If you are good to move forward, feel free to just indicate that in the chat or in a reaction. I don't want to go too fast, but I don't want to go too slow. All right, while the rest of you finish up your tags, feel free to keep working. Just wanted to throw out a couple additional pieces of information before we continue. So the link that you received today will be open until April 30th. You are free to share this exact link with students. On the presentation you received, there will be a QR code if that's easier for whatever device you have in your building. Otherwise, that link is written out for you up there. In our free code access, our code doesn't always save. So make sure at the end of today and at the end of your lessons to copy and paste the code into like a Google Doc or any separate document so that you have that with you and you can paste that back into the editor if you were to visit the next time. If you are really interested in using this for multiple lessons, like I had mentioned earlier, feel free to reach out to me, and it may be best for you to use the free trial that we have going on right now, because then students' work will save and you'll have a little bit more of an ease if you're going to revisit this multiple days. So that's an option for you as well. But for this code link, just make sure to copy and paste just because you don't want to lose all of that work. We've logged in here, we've practiced some headers, and we are going to be visiting some other tags today. So we learned headers. We may use a break. I'll show you what this looks like today. It may help organize your creation today. We are going to learn about our body tags. We are going to do some marquees. We are going to add some image tags. And then we're also going to learn how to change our fonts, our text colors, our background colors, and to align all of our text. So we're going to try to do this all in 29 minutes. If we don't get through everything today and you have to go right at the deadline of 6:30, I will make sure that whatever we don't get to today, I record myself doing. So no worries, but I want to be respectful of your time. So going back to our code editor, I'm going to ask that you delete everything that you have done so far, okay? Now, students might be a little upset with you about this, but it'll be just fine. But you're gonna delete everything, all of those headers that you just practiced, and we are going to get into making our public service announcement. So have a blank slate. I'm going to close out my textbook. So our first step today is we are going to provide our audience with our engaging lead. So for mine, it was the ocean is not your trash can. So I am going to have an H1 tag So an opening there, the ocean. And then we're going to close that up. So I am choosing H1 because this is our engaging lead. It is what's going to grab our reader's attention, and we want this to be the biggest text on our site. So I would love for you to have your opening H1 and closing with your engaging lead in between. If you did not have too much time to think, just put in a couple of words there so you get the experience of actually coding through this. And then after that, we are going to include 2 H3 tags. So I'll walk through this step and then I'll give you a couple of minutes to work. Again, not trying to rush you, but these are similar tasks to what you just did. So we'll go through our next step with our H3 tags. Now I like to click return or enter twice because I like a little bit more space between my code. That's just my style. So you'll see a gap before I put in my H3. That is totally up to you. We're going to add some extra attributes, some images in between. So it just might help you stay organized. It will not affect your code if you choose not to do that. But we're going to add in our H3s, so opening and closing. And in between those, our content will be some statistics that relate to our problem. So for mine, I'm going to put in my first statistic. And I'm going to close that up. Give myself a couple of enters and put in my second one. Like I stated earlier, one of these statistics is a little too long, but we'll just go for it for today. So give a couple of minutes. You'll have an engaging lead in between your H1 tags and some statistics or solutions in between your H3 tags. If you need any help at all, please ask us in the chat. We are happy to help. And once you're good to go, if you want to just let us know. H3 message is larger than H1. Yes, so do you have, just making sure you have an opening and a closing tag. That could be a little issue. All right, looks like we have a couple extra H's. So make sure that you remove the H before the backslash and you should be good to go. Love that we had audience members to help each other out. All right, I'll move on to our next step. Feel free to continue to ask questions in the chat if you get stuck, if you get a little behind. There are plenty of us to help. Just want to also let you know, we are moving into, we're gonna add some different fonts to the mix. So on the left side here, if you wanted to click change lesson and go into fonts, that is an option for you to be able to follow along. So if you get stuck, if you're having trouble managing multiple screens, feel free to relate to the fonts lesson for the next part. So we are going to add some style attributes to our code. So we are going to go back up to H1, and before, so we're at our opening tag, before that greater than symbol, we are going to have a space there, and we're going to type style equals, and we will have two sets of quotation marks. And then we're going to scooch back and place our cursor in between the two sets of quotation marks. Now, this is a style thing as well. This is something that students might find helpful to have their quotation marks in, or this might be something they don't enjoy. I find that if I don't do both sets of quotation marks right away, I forget them later on, and then I have bugs in my code and I can't figure out why. So that's my style. It's a helpful hint for students. You can do as you wish though. So again, just going through that, we have before our greater than symbol, we're typing in style equals, and then two sets of quotation marks, and then have your cursor in between those quotation marks. And in between there, we are going to write font hyphen family. And then we are going to do a colon and put in a font of your choice. And then I'm going to ask that you put a semicolon because that'll set us up for success later. Now on the left, you'll be able to see some examples of fonts that we have. Students will be able to click a try it box to kind of see what that looks like. They may not be as familiar with different fonts as we are, but there are some options there for you to choose from. Now, some browsers don't connect to all of these fonts, so if one isn't working for you today, maybe try a different one for now. I'm going to walk through that whole process again with my H3 tag. So right after 3, I'm going to do a space, style equals, two sets of quotation marks. I'm going to move to be in the middle of those quotation marks where I will type font hyphen family colon, a font of my choice, and a semicolon to set us up for later. I'll give just a minute or two to accomplish that and put a tip in the chat. If you are having trouble, feel free to ask for some help. I don't know if you can hear this, but my dog is dreaming right now very loudly. I hope you can't hear it. Noise canceling headphones. All right, we'll move to our next step, which is going to be to change our text color. So again, on the left side, if you need some additional help, you can visit the text colors lesson to help you go through this. If you are not quite done with all of your fonts yet, no worries, you'll have that on the left side for some help. But we are going to go back up to our H1 tag, and after our semicolon, we are going to add in our next style attribute, which will be for our text color. So that is why I liked to put in the semicolon right away, because our code is kind of set up for us to continue to add to it. And since I'm revisiting it, I might forget to add that later. So again, just another helpful hint that students might benefit from. Now, I've had some people ask me as well, why I go to each tag and then I do fonts and then I go back and then I add text colors. Again, I just think that for students, saying that all at once to add the fonts and the text could be a little bit overwhelming. So doing things one step at a time just might be a little bit more successful. But if you have master coders, of course, they could throw that all in right away. But to add our color here after the semicolon, all we need to do is just type color and then a colon, and then type in the color we would like included for our text there. I'm going to scooch down to my next tag and show that again, but in a slightly different way. So after the semicolon, I will do color, colon, and we also have a color picker. So there's going to be a little palette in the right upper bar. You can click on that and you can kind of find the best color for you. And once you find it, you can click copy and you'll paste that right after the colon. Now for today, I will not be adding any more style. So I don't need to include a semicolon after that, but I can if I think I want to add some more later. I'm going to add it just in case. We are also quiet. If you'd like to take a minute just to let us know that you're all good, feel free to throw something in the chat. Feel free to ask for help if you're stuck. All right, we have a few more steps to go, so I'll continue. Again, you'll have this recording, so if you miss something that I said, you'll be able to revisit it later, especially if you want to do this with students. That'll be a resource for you. But our next step we're going to take is to change our background color to make sure that these font colors are good with whatever we want our background to look like. So what we're going to do, and again, this is a style thing, so I'm not saying this is the right way, but this is how I like to do this. So we're going to change the background color. But in order to do that, we need to add a body tag. So I'm actually going to go all the way up and have my cursor before my H1 opening tag and just click a couple enters. And at the top, I'm going to include body. And this is why I prefer to do, I'm going to backspace a little bit here. This is why I prefer to do this after there's some code in there, so students can really see how a body tag will affect their code. So it's just another visual for them to see. If they had their body tags right away, they might not make that connection. So you can see my code is changing colors. It's changing its look in the editor on the very right side. So just a good visual for them. But we'll do a body, which is in between our greater than, less than symbols. And then at the end of our H3 tag, so the end of all of our code that we have, we will throw in a closing tag there. Oop, you can see I'm making some bugs. Making sure we have a backslash before we type out body. And Anne threw a nice tip in the chat. So now that we have our body tag, and this is where you can refer to the background color lesson. So just want to make sure you know that there's resources for you and for your students. So in our body tag then, we are going to add, we're going to do a space after the Y, and we'll do style equals 2 sets of quotations, just like we used earlier. And then in between those, we are going to type out background hyphen color. And we can put in the color we'd like. Now, again, I'm going to throw in a semicolon right after that. If we have time, I was going to show you some text align, so that would be ready for us. This will be a good maybe place to pause with students and maybe walk around and look at each other's creations and get some feedback on, like, these colors are horrible together, it's hard to see. So another just moment maybe for some collaboration among your students. So right after the Y in body, we're going to have style equals 2 sets of quotation marks. And in between those, we are going to write background hyphen color colon and your color. Now, fun fact, the most issue I've ever had with background colors with students is that they spell background instead of background. So that wasn't working for them. So they learned how to spell something that day. All right, and after a background color, I know we're kind of short on time. So again, if I'm going too fast, you will have this resource for you later. We are going to just add in one photo. I had multiple on mine, but again, sake of time, we'll just toss in a photo. So you can choose where you want this to be. It can be after H1, after one of your H3s. Just know that wherever you put it, it'll show up either before or after that tag that you had. So if you're like overwhelmed already and you're not quite ready for an image, don't worry. There's a lesson for you to refer to. But I am going to go right after my H1 tag here, do a couple enters or returns, and we are going to do an image tag. So this is a little different than the tags we've been doing so far because it does not need a closing tag. So it'll look on the left side, you can see it here. It'll be image source equals, And for source, it'll be SRC, 2 sets of quotation marks, and we'll be putting a URL in between those. And that'll be a little tip for you in the chat. So right after my H1, again, you can put it where you'd like. I am going to do image, IMG, source, SRC, equals. I'm going to have 2 sets of quotation marks that I'm going to put in that greater than symbol. And now we're going to go grab us a picture. So this image lesson is also helpful for maybe giving some tips on where you can find some good free images. So I like to use Unsplash. So I'll just go over there. I'm going to type in ocean. And then I am going to left click, and this is where your device probably varies, but left click or control click, and I'm going to copy the image address. I will go back, and in between those quotation marks, I will paste that in. I'm going to actually delete that and just go through that process again, just so you could catch all of those steps, because it is a little bit different. So I'm going to throw in my lesson symbol, image, SRC, equals, 2 sets of quotations. Hopefully you're kind of flowing with that already. And then close that up, go over, find my photo, left click, control, whatever it may be for you, copy image address. That part is important. In between my quotations, I'm going to paste that in. My next piece of advice for you, and again, I'm scrolling in my book here on the left, is that your picture is going to come in, it is going to be very large. So you may want to, after your quotations here, okay, so before your symbol, after those quotations there, you can do with equals, quotation, quotation, and you could do 300 px. I'll do 200. Oh, that is kind of small. I'll do 300. So you can kind of play around with the size there. So that'll be a little helpful tool in your textbook on the left side. Also could be a fun activity to do with students, like see how small you can have it, see how big you could get that. So play around with the size. Okay, we have 4 minutes. So I'm going to move to our last step, which is doing a marquee. Opening that up on the left side for you to kind of see what that may look like. So before we close out our body here, so after my H3, we are going to do a marquee. So we are going to type out marquee in between our greater than and less than symbols. We'll type in some content. And you will see that moving. So then we'll close that up, adding a backslash before we type out marquee. Now, if I chose to do the marquee, so I'll just do it again, but I'll just do it in different placement. I'll do it before, let's just do it right at the top. In case students do this, it might freak you out. But if I type in marquee in between my greater than less than symbols at the top, it's going to move my entire site. And while this is kind of cool, it may be a little bit hard to read all of that. But as soon as I type in my text and close up with a closing tag, that'll stop and it'll move only that information. So if students do that, you don't know what's going on. They haven't closed up their marquee quite yet. You can also play around with the style of the marquee by adding some H1 tags, kind of playing around with your size. That's a fun thing to let students kind of explore, like problem solve, like how could you change how that looks, and see if they can figure it out. So that was a lot of information. Hopefully you got through some of it. Hopefully you felt a little bit comfortable with some of our HTML concepts. Again, we're going to make sure you have resources that you need to be able to teach this in your classroom with students. So just before we go, again, if you plan to do this with students, please share. And if you don't want to do it on social media, feel free to just email me and just share what they have done, because I would love to see it. If you need any professional development information, like a certificate, let us know. Keep your eyes open for a follow-up email with all those resources that you saw today. They may end up in your spam, so if you don't hear from me, check it out there. And then our link is open until April 30th, or feel free to ask me about the free trial if you think that would be of use to you. If you would like to share out, feel free to, I don't know, put a screenshot in the chat, or you can take over sharing your screen if you're brave. But thank you so much for everything you do to engage students, to prepare them for the future, and for taking extra time out of your day to learn something new. We really appreciate you being here. Feel free to hop off if you are done with your day. If you want to share, let us know.